Here.
Motion by Jackie, support by Shelley. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is the presentation of the tax levy and fiscal 22 budget. Mr. Alex Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight about the tax levy and budget review. As you know, it's required at this meeting after 6, and we'll present a chance for public comment at the end. So I'll try to keep it brief and as painless as possible. Just an overview of what I'm going to talk about tonight. First of all, just the meeting requirements, why we're here. Then I'm going to move on to the levy discussion, the process of how we got here, the current levy, the end result, and factors that drove any changes. And then I'm going to end with a review of the budget that you approved last June. Just a very brief breakdown of the revenue and expenses. Minnesota statute requires that counties send out proposed property tax statements in November. This is based on the preliminary tax levies set by all taxing jurisdictions. So back in September, you approved maximum levy authority, and that's what the proposed property taxes is based on. When you approve the maximum, that you can't exceed that amount on your final levy, but you can come in under that. What I'm going to present to you tonight is the maximum levy authority. Nothing changed since September, the preliminary levy. And then most taxing jurisdictions hold their hearing prior to certifying the final levy, and that's what we are doing tonight. And this meeting will satisfy the district's requirement for truth in taxation. The district's required to present on the proposed property tax levy, table 2022, a budget review, and allow for public comments. This is an illustration of the levy cycle and kind of the timeline. It's always kind of a 3-year rolling process. So back starting actually in July and August, we started putting in information for the levy to the state of Minnesota, and brought forward our proposed levy in September. So, and then tonight we're finalizing it. So the levy is certified in 2021. Next May and October, when people pay their property taxes, that's when the levy is actually paid out and is reconciled and received in fiscal year 23. So the levy that you're certifying tonight is actually for fiscal year 2023. So now to the number. The total levy this year is $1,085,130.25. As I mentioned, in September, this is a very minor change, which is good. We don't like big jumps in taxes. We don't like big drops in taxes. So this was a decrease of about $37,000. So very stable, consistent as to the levy in the last couple of years. And feel free to jump in with any questions at any time.
Alex,
Yes.
how do they determine? Okay, so we approve the maximum. How do they determine how much the decrease is? Do you know?
Well, there's about 40 pages of formulas and calculations, but
Yeah.
it's based on all kinds of things. It's your tax base, your market values of your properties, our enrollment.
Okay.
And there's a lot of calculations that go into it, that where the state of Minnesota says this is as much as you can levy based on
That.
your property wealth and your
Okay.
net tax capacity in your district.
Okay. All right.
And that'll go up or down, between years just based on those factors.
Because I've often wondered why we just don't stay with the maximum and just, I've often wondered that, but I see now why.
Yeah, I mean, the maximum changes from year to year.
It does.
That's why in September, when we vote to approve maximum authority, we're being safe for our school district, because as much as we can tax, we're fulfilling that, so. Anything else? Okay. Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about some changes that, drove that change, but with that being said, there really wasn't any one or two things that's like, oh, that really, drove taxes down or really increased taxes. It was really a pretty stable environment here with the levy calculations. But with that said, I wanted to bring a few talking points about some changes to the levy. Retiree health insurance actually decreased a little bit, not a huge amount, but that's the result of the insurance renewals that we had that were favorable in the last year. We use the current year to estimate our insurance costs in the levy. TACONITE production was down a little bit, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide, but the TACONITE production does have an impact on the levy. And then, like I was saying earlier, changes in the net tax capacity, property wealth, that's what drove the bulk of the change. And there was just a few other adjustments like long-term facilities. There's some debt excess that negatively adjusted. So it was really not any one thing that drove that 37,000. It was a combination of many different calculations and factors. So this is a history of the TACONITE levy adjustment. It's based on a 3-year rolling average. So when TACONITE production goes up, the burden on the taxpayers goes down, and the opposite is true as well. When TACONITE production falls, there's more burden. When TACONITE production falls, there's more burden on the district taxpayers. When it goes up, there's less. So it's revenue neutral for the district. The district gets the same amount either way. It's just a matter of if it's coming from, the St. Louis County or if it's coming from the local taxpayers. So in this scenario here, the 462,000 from payable 2019 drops off the 3-year rolling average and is replaced by the 505,000. So the 3-year rolling average actually goes up, which reduces the tax burden on the local taxpayers. So minimal in this case, but that's part of what's happening here. This is a depiction of the last 6 years of levy. This is actually a really good looking graph because it is pretty flat. A little spike there in 2019, but generally you're between $1 million and 1.2 million. And that's, or no, 1.1 million and 1.2 million. So it's really just, at least in recent years, been a really stable flat line, which is good for our taxpayers and it's good for our district because to keep that revenue stable. This is a depiction I like to use just to compare us to some of our peers of similar size. There's 4 other school districts on there that relatively comparable in enrollment. You can see that first set of numbers under the district names, that's their adjusted ADMs, which is their base enrollment. And you can see, for example, Moose Lake is less students than Chisholm, but has a greater levy burden. And the only one is Barnum is levied less than Chisholm with virtually the same enrollment. So Chisholm actually does pretty well with local taxpayer burden for their levy. And again, depends on the property wealth in the district, it depends on your tax capacity, and Chisholm has the TACONITE production, which lowers the tax burden for the local taxpayers. So overall, the community does really well for their local tax burden. Yeah, and that's an overview of the levy this year. The final levy adoption is going to be tonight, hopefully, after this presentation. I'm going to move to the budget side of it here. Is there any questions on the levy stuff? This is the budget that the board approved back on June 14th, I believe. Some deficit spending in the general fund, that's the fund that we put most of our focus on. Food service, you're showing balanced budget, and transportation a small surplus, as well as community education. And overspent on capital, I'm not sure what the plan was with that, but it's fairly minor overall. And then Fund 6 construction, I believe what happened here is that there was some construction revenue in prior years, and that's the spending down of that balance, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why that shows a deficit of $286,000. Debt service by its nature is designed to be an in and out. You're paying for your prior borrowings and your bond sales. Fund 9 trust, we do not use anymore. And I'm assuming that she just listed that to depict that we're discontinuing that. Same with the Fund 11. Fund 18 is a scholarship fund, and that's an in and out fund as well. And then 45 and 47 is in relation to your OPEB trust and servicing that debt from several years ago to pay for the retiree health insurance that is sunsetted out in the contract.
And then we're able to take money out of the fund to pay for our retiree health insurance premiums.
Right.
And we can only take out as much as we owe.
Yeah.
So if it's $250,000, then that's what we take out, and then we pay for the premiums, and it doesn't come out of the general fund,
Exactly. And
which really helps a lot.
this was one of many things that we tried to piece together, but during the audit, we made a withdrawal of about $280,000 for last year's
Yeah.
post-employment benefit expenses. So like you said, no impact to the general fund, and it should be all there to cover our post-employment benefit funds going forward. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
positive thing for the district. Any questions about this part of it? This is a review again of what you passed in June.
I'm glad I got new glasses I can actually.
They keep adding funds, so it gets small, smaller and smaller. So of that revenue, of that 11,500,000 in revenue, the levy represents just 9% of the total revenue. So that's really good news for our local taxpayers. The remainder being mostly state sources and some federal sources. This is a breakdown of our expenses. And you can see about 65% is paying for our staff, which is not untypical of the school district. Most school districts, their biggest cost is their people. And then your purchase services, that's another big chunk that include like your INAC food service, those kind of things, special ed contracts. And then the rest you can see, supplies, capital, debt service makes up the remainder of the expenses.
Are you hungry?
This, I think, is important to include whenever you're talking about anything about taxes and revenue. This is your enrollment history. Holding strong there for several years, between 7 and 750, and then the last 2 years with the pandemic and all that. Saw a little hit, and you're not alone in this. Every district has seen this, and it's just something I think that the board needs to be aware that, in the 6 year times, that's went from about 750 to 650. So definitely we'll be keeping an eye on it, keep talking about it. Hopefully get some of those kids back.
And the percent of money that they gave back in pandemic loss was minimal.
Yeah, very, very
Nah, next to nothing.
But like I said, all districts, at least around here, are struggling with the same thing right now, so. We'll just keep working and try and get through it.
Yeah.
That is all I have. Hope it wasn't too bad, and time for comments and questions.
So your slide that you had that had what was approved in June, was that pre any percent that we gained, like the 2.45 and the?
don't know the timeline, that was Kristen at the time, right?
That's what I was gonna ask, was that prior to that?
You weren't here, I suppose, either, so.
Yep, so I'm assuming that was prior to that, so,
She probably did that in like May, so.
Okay.
She may not have known the extra 4.5 or 0.45%.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
and we'll look at doing a revised here down the road based on actual fall enrollment.
thank you.
I just call him pesterer and say, what do you know?
I'm gonna see her pretty soon, my grandson plays.
Okay.
so.
Any other questions for Alex? Thank you for coming over and doing this for us.
Yes.
Will you share that out with all of us, so we have that?
I do have hard copies if anyone's in.
Okay,
Oh, sure.
thank you.
And I can email it to you.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see that, if you can share.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
I will take a hard, you don't have to email me, because I would just print it out anyway.
Good.
Okay. So, the business of this end of this meeting is to adopt and certify the final 2021 payable 2022 levy in the amount of $1,085,130.25. Do we have a motion? Motion by Cindy, support by Jackie. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Alex, you have a plan B in place if you are not able to make the next meeting?
Well,
Soon to be a dad,
Soon
so.
to be a dad, yeah.
Oh,
Congratulations.
within a week or so, but, so I'll just tell you about the, are you still live right now?
Do you want me to stay live or no?
You could end it.
Wait,
We gotta
hold
adjourn
on.
first, we have to
Oh,
publicly
sorry.
adjourn.
Huh?
Go ahead and adjourn.
Yeah, so we need a motion to adjourn.
So wait,
Moved by Jackie,